Hey, it's Kyle Jarris here, joining you with AMA Junior Camp's Afternoon Conversation Series. Really excited to see you all coming back online here today, and it's going to be a great conversation. You guys are in for a treat, and I hope you remembered some of your questions from yesterday's morning session because this guy is going to be able to help with everything Bernoulli and beyond. So, it's going to be a great conversation. I know you guys had a great time at this morning's session. Kyle Thiede knocked it out of the park, talking about air density and how heat and cold affect those things. I know, my son Wyatt was out most of the afternoon afterwards, playing with his vinegar and baking soda, balloons, all that. So great times were had by him, at least. I hope that's the same for you. Hope you guys enjoyed that lesson. But without further ado, I'm really excited to welcome our next guest. He is a longtime supporter of the AMA, but his involvement in STEM endeavors really, it knows no limits. He's a science educator with over 40 years of experience teaching all over the world. He's received Emmy Awards, Presidential Awards, AMA Awards, and many more. And without further ado, I'll just introduce the guy, Rick Crosslin. Excited to have him on board today.
Hey, Kyle. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh man, thanks for being here, Rick. We always love it when you're able to help us out with videos, with teaching things that are science, engineering, mathematics, which it's a lot of fun, and you bring that wealth of fun and enjoyment to every topic you touch on. So, without me talking anymore, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, so I go back and forth. I love science, but I love doing science with kids, students, because it's all about asking questions. And like every day when I'm walking around or driving, or I always try to think, okay, I learned something from somebody, or I saw a video, I read it in a book, and I'm always wanting to know, is it true? Does it really work? And so I like to test things because some people are really good at just memorizing science facts and memorizing things. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm the kind of guy that I have to do it and try to figure out, oh, that's why it does that. And then I start making connections. But I like all science. When I went to college, I guess I ended up, I've been teaching for a long time, and it came about two ways. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and my dad was in the Air Force. So we traveled all over the world. And there was always airplanes. In fact, this might be hard for you to remember, but when I was in school, when the B-52 bombers took off at the air base, our teachers just stopped teaching because it was so loud.
There was no way to talk over that, right?
Yeah. Or when jets took off. So we just got used to that. But so living all over the world and meeting new people, it just kind of fit in. But I was also the oldest of 5 kids. So I always took care of my younger brothers and sisters. And when we move someplace, and maybe you guys are like this, I always try to find out what cool things are around here. And so from that, I ended up going to college. I hitchhiked from England into Germany, and then I hitchhiked to Indiana.
That's a long drive.
Speaking about airplanes, I stayed I was in Germany at an Air Force base, Ramstein. And
okay.
And so since I was a student, we were Category 4. So I waited all week for a plane, and a C-5 Galaxy landed. And there was only like 5 seats on it, and nobody else wanted to get on it. I said, I'm going. And it was so cool to fly on one of the largest airplanes in the world. And another time, Air Force 2 landed unannounced. And I said, well, can we fly it? And the guy looked at me and goes, you have a nicer shirt to wear? So I got to fly on that and across, and I've flown a lot, but then I ended up going to Indiana State, and I was going to be an anthropologist. I took all these classes in anthropology, and I loved paleontology, I loved archaeology and anthropology, but I kept getting in trouble by showing kids, sneaking kids into the lab and showing them things. And so finally someone said, you know what, you ought to be a teacher. And I thought, okay. So I student taught back in 1976. But I was kind of not the regular type of teacher because I had all this science, and we just had science projects. And so today I work with 11 schools. I'm the scientist in residence for Wayne Township Schools on the west side of Indianapolis. And I work at 11 schools, and I've created about 40, 50 hands-on projects. And a lot of them have to do with flight, like the FPG-9. I have made thousands of FPG-9s with kids. So that's what I've been doing. And of course, I like to tell people I like to teach K through death. I've taught preschool. I've taught at prison. I've taught. I taught like 6 years a graduate course at IU University on aerospace. And that was so cool because it was all things that fly or float or you could shoot in the air. So we made kites. And we made tissue hot air balloons, and we made, of course, the FPG-9. Back then, we made it out of an egg carton. You know how hard it is to get a bunch of egg cartons?
Everybody bring in an egg carton next week. Yeah, it takes a while, doesn't it?
So that I had a lot of fun from rockets. And so that love I've taken to kids. And I actually was lucky enough to have a television show here in Indianapolis that's now online called Indiana Expeditions. Because when I'm not flying airplanes, I'm taking kids caving or rock collecting or fossil collecting. And of course, at my summer camp, which starts in June, Monday is aviation day. Yeah. So we build, we're building the alpha, but now we started building the beta, the AMA. Like anybody can build that and be successful. And we do the FPG-9s. What I love about the FPG-9, if you haven't made one yet, foam plate glider 9-inch, is that you can teach so much about control surfaces and flight and balance and wing shape with that. And once we make one, I have a big, if you're ever interested, I have a way to do it for the design process. So we make one, and after we make that one, the kids can make any type of design
they want, yeah.
From bats to seeds. And then we do one that is a scientific method where if you look at those three, if you remember the FPG-9, it has two elevons and one rudder. And those rudders can be, or elevons, there you go, can be moved in three different directions. It can be straight, left, or right. So if you do the math, 3 times 3 times 3, there are 27 different configurations that you can move those three things. And so I have kids, we test that first. You know, I will tell you this, I like to build models and I like to fly them, but I'm not very good at trimming them. And I didn't even know that was a thing until I started meeting people from the AMA.
Yeah.
So when you build a model, you guys may be a lot more successful. I can follow directions, I can do all that, and it takes some skill and some patience, and I'm good for that. But then when it's done, I always thought, oh, it's going to fly great. And they never do.
It takes a little bit of tweaking, but eventually they get there.
Yeah, they do. And so it's really good to know someone like, Kyle or people in the AMA, because they can help you. There's a saying in science about Isaac Newton. He stood on the shoulders of giants to see further. And so it's great that when you build something, it's okay to build it by yourself. And if you want to do that's fine. But it's so much better if you can share that and learn from others. And that's what I like to do. I got some, I don't know if you ever get a chance to visit the AMA, but the museum up there is just fantastic to see.
Yeah.
The golden age of model building and things like that.
And by the way, if anyone's local or if they just want to become local for a while and travel out here, the museum's opening for the summer this coming Monday. So
nice. So it's amazing all the things that can fly. And so, but my deal is when I do these, like when I do it for the fourth grade, I have 54 fourth grade classrooms. So I need to be able to do things that I can afford. And a lot of people do drones. I love drones. I love robots, but I can't buy 1,000 drones.
That's fair. But foam plates are a lot easier to come by.
Yeah, yes, they are. It's so funny. I did some work with an aviation club in China. Kyle, I talked about it. And these kids, it's like you go there for the week and you camp and you stay there, and it's beautiful. And I showed them the FPG-9. they had a hard time finding a foam plate in China. But we finally found some and did that. So I guess probably one of the coolest. If you ever get a chance to go to Washington D.C. to the Air and Space Museum, uh, modeling has played such an important role in aviation. Now, when you think about it, like to make a full size anything and see if it flies, that's kind of chancy. It probably doesn't work. But to make something smaller and test it in a wind tunnel like the Wright brothers did, all the way up to today, they use wind tunnels to test parts. And so if you ever get a chance to go to the Air and Space Museum, or if you're in Ohio, the Air Force Museum at Wright-Patterson, I believe, those are wonderful places. I never will forget, though, I was at the Air and Space, and I saw this glass case, and in it was an airplane about this big with a bristle fuselage tissue, and they had glued a fly on it. Now, they got the fly cold and a refrigerator glued it on there, and it would fly. And I thought, wow. I mean, I'm not like hurting flies, but the world could use just a few less flies. But
That
was definitely so cool to see that. So I like learning about things like that. I like learning about Leonardo da Vinci, because how many of you have looked up and watched a bird soar, or and we have all these turkey vultures in Indiana. So just of all the animals, just for one day, I would like to be maybe a turkey vulture that could just fly. So, like myself, Leonardo da Vinci was fascinated with flight, and his drawings, detailed drawings of birds and dissection of birds and their hollow bones and the structures. And he ended up making two things, like the first plans for an ornithopter. And an ornithopter, if you think about it, ornith means bird. And I like making those connections in science of Latin words and such. And he also, and this is something I do with kids, he made like the first parachute, and it's like the shape of a pyramid. It's a triangular formation. So that's one of the big things I use with kids. We make those parachutes, we test them, and
they work surprisingly well, really.
They do. There's some modifications like letting air out of the top of them, but I had the fortunate experience to work with the AMA and with the Children's Museum here in Indianapolis. It's the largest children's museum in the world. And we put together a small exhibit, but we wrote a unit of study using NASA. It was a NASA AMA Children's Museum joint project. And so that's online at Flight School. I got my flight school shirt on.
Mine too, yeah.
And so what I try to do is like one unit's on the parachute and how today NASA uses the paraglider and how they've tested all those models. And one thing, we actually made a PBS documentary about it. I got to go out to Dryden Flight Research Center. I think it's called.
Such a good video.
And I took a FPG-9, a hardened version, and we put it in a water tunnel just to test it, to watch how things go. So I've always enjoyed making the connections of science and model aircraft. So.
What was your first exposure to model aviation? Do you remember?
Okay, so two times. I remember an uncle of mine that had made a gas powered plane, and my first exposure, I remember going out in the field with him, and of course I was just sitting there watching. I was pretty little, but I caught a mouse. A field mouse, and he put it in the plane and flew it. That was my first. I don't think we would do that today. It was fine, but that was But I sent you guys a picture. I don't know if you have that picture. This was me when I lived in England, and I became friends with some of the airmen. And that's a gas powered. You see, there's the can of the fuel, and there's the battery, the big round battery to get it started. And that's a plastic. It's a control line plane, and my friend, the airman that helped me with this, there's one guy at a camera, and I don't know, I just found that picture. And that's from like 1960 or 61. That's That's back in the day. So that was probably the first thing. I don't remember me flying it. Mostly back then, I would do the watching of the flying.
Yeah. It looks like a little 049 engine on there, maybe.
Yeah,
I
it was
can't
pretty
quite
small.
tell.
But I'll tell you though, if you skip a bunch of years, I was at a science convention in NSTA, which is the National Science Teachers Association, and we have a local. Each state has a chapter. I was the president of Hasty, but teachers would go to these big national conventions, and that's where I met the AMA. The AMA used to come to these, and you'd see these things flying, and it was called the Delta Dart. And I would sit down, and they would show you how to make the Delta Dart rubber band powered plane, and I made lots of those, and that's how I first remember that back in the 80s of meeting somebody from the AMA, knowing what the AMA was, and making that Delta Dart with the pins. And I don't know if the super glues were as good as back then as they are now.
I remember building one with wood glue when I was a kid, and
Yeah.
it took a little time, but it worked great. It was just a much slower process, whereas today we do have some faster options with that
Yeah.
that we can use.
And so, I work with a lot of kids now. Like on my summer camp, we'll build a jet stream or something. And so, in one hand, I have the glue, in the other hand, I have the accelerator.
Yeah.
But next to me is the release, because
Yeah. You got to have it with you.
I've had lots of you kids, you guys that build these. You get a lot of airplane parts stuck to places you really don't want them stuck to.
Yeah. You've got to have that debonder.
And so but then I'll tell you another aviation cool thing that happened one time. I was somewhere and I met this guy who I saw what he had. It was an airplane made out of balsa, and the wings were so clear they reflected. It was like a micro airplane, I guess. The whole thing could only weigh a couple grams. And I watched this guy just walk with it so slowly.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's kind of
F1D.
cool. And I watched him wind it up. And that's when I learned about, the winds and friction and Italian rubber and special balsa. And when he let that thing fly, I stood there and watched this thing fly for over 15 minutes in a gym.
Mesmerizing.
And I was like, wow. And so I talked to this guy like I often do. I go, that is so cool. And he goes, yeah, we got a club here called the Free Flight Fellows. I go, okay, cool. And he goes, well, we never find places to fly. And I go, I'm a teacher, and we have 14 school buildings. He goes, you have anything with a flat roof? And I go, yeah, we have this, we call it the rubber gym. It has a flat ceiling. And that's how I started hosting these events. I did learn that people who make those, who probably never have a heart attack in their life because they do it so slow, and 8 and 9-year-olds, we don't mix too well.
Yeah.
But it was so cool to watch that. Then I learned at that same event, they have a group called, I think it's the Peanut Scale.
Uh-huh.
And a guy made a yellow Cub Piper, I think it was about this big, and a little bit bigger propeller on it. And he wound that up, and I could swear that was a real full-scale plane flying in that gym. And then when it landed, and so I was hooked. I never made one of those micro lights, but I sure enjoyed meeting the people who made them. And this one guy was actually on, I think, the national team. They went someplace like to some Poland, to some salt mines deep in the ground with no wind currents. And that's a fascinating hobby. This hobby can take you to meet real interesting people and can take you all around the world, because people like to fly, like we like to fly.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and it's fun to hear about your background and, just the varied instances within science, technology, engineering, mathematics, all the things, but all the different angles that you take to change your perspective on these things. And you grab all these things, put it into your experience pocket, and then share that with others. It's amazing, the level of curiosity that you have. And I guess where I'm getting at with that is, my question is, how do you inspire that same curiosity, with the students that you interact with, like you say, from K to grave?
Yeah. So the it's interesting because I love doing it and I like doing it with them. I've never met a kid that, we dissect owl pellets, we collect fossils, and I love doing it, and they do too. And it just kind of it's contagious. If you ask me, it's contagious. And I also have another theory: is I don't want anybody to sit and just watch. My science is a participation sport. I want you to actually. So I make sure that it's not just one kid making an airplane and 5 kids watching. It's 5 kids making an airplane and crashing them. And so,
yeah, and fixing them and working on them and tuning them up, all the good things.
Yeah. So now I've been teaching a long time, and so I'm very fortunate that a lot of my former students are now teachers. And I tell anybody and everybody, if it's fossils or if it's airplanes, fall into your hobby, and because it's a hobby, but you can learn so much more about the world and meet some really interesting people along the way, and you will get better at it. You will get better at it. I know, Kyle, you've probably given me at least 2 drones, and I am no better at flying them than the day you gave them to me, for the simple reason I haven't put the time into flying.
Yeah. And we're all naturally gifted in different ways, but to really become proficient and get to a level expert, or an expert level rather,
Sure.
You do have to put that time in, no matter how naturally gifted you are, and that's okay. That's part of it. And even better if you're excited and curious and want to learn and get better at those things, because honestly, as you get better and better at that one topic, you'll find that so many things are interrelated.
Yes.
Everything is a connection. And then you start branching off. Well, that's really exciting too. Let's go down this trail for a little while. And then, wow, I learned something else. And I come full circle because it all impacts the same thing I started at. It's pretty neat.
If you're like me and kids, you're never going to have enough time in your life to do the things you want to do. I'll tell you, on Thursdays during the summer, we go to a part of Indiana where there's these wonderful fossils. And my philosophy is anything you can load on the bus is yours. But for a break, there's a reservoir there, a man-made reservoir with a pretty high dam, grassy slope. So I went to the local box chain store and bought 25 of those foam gliders. Now,
big ones, yeah.
Yeah. So if you've thrown those in your backyard, it's kind of fun. But if you go in a place that's got a 2-mile valley and winds,
just watch those things soar across the slope. Yeah.
And it's like, see you kids, so I've got a lot of videos. Speaking of videos, I have a YouTube channel called Rick Crosslin Science, where I try to put all this stuff up. And there we had some, beautiful videos of those things just going and going and going. I was really, one time I built a glider, and it had this fuse on it with a weight, and I thought, what is that all about? And so when you make a glider, you set it up to be balanced with its center of gravity over its center of lift. And so that it actually flies without just how the design is. Well, then I learned about these things called thermals, and they said, well, if you don't have this fuse on there, you may lose your glider. I said, what does the fuse do? Well, it burns so far, and then a weight drops and changes the center of gravity, and your plane will come down. So I thought, that's pretty optimistic to make a plane that you can lose.
Definitely. And I mean, even the alphas and the betas, I've heard lots of stories of, hey, I need to order another one because mine flew away.
Yeah.
You get caught in a thermal, it'll go away on you real quick.
When I do this with my kids, I always I tell them 2 things. Okay, you're going to make this, you're going to fly it, you're going to crash it, and you're going to have to fix it. You're going to have to figure out how to fix it. That's going to happen. It's just going to happen no matter what we do. And number 2, a couple, you're going to lose yours. And the trees are gone. And so I end up, it's pretty disappointing. So I always keep 2 extra kits. I go, hey, here you go. Make it at home.
We got you ready. Yeah, that's the perfect way to do it.
I guess I just want people to be successful and to do that. I'll tell you a story. When we did that story on Wings Over Indiana, that PBS documentary, we went up to a place in northern Indiana where there is a soaring at Alexandria. There's where they are soar planes or gliders with a plane that pulls you. And so I couldn't wait to ride in one of those. And I was in the front, and I'm thinking, okay, all those airplanes I made, okay, stick, stall. I don't want to stall. You got your yaw, you got your roll, you got your pitch, and the pilot who was behind me was this 15-year-old kid who did not have a driver's license. And I'm going, okay, you're a good student, right? His dad had taught him, and he was a really good student. And I'm thinking, as a teacher, I'm going to get in a plane where the kid, has a pilot's license to fly this, but he does not have a license to drive a car. Okay, so we're filming this.
There's a lot of trust there.
Yeah, a lot of trust. I'm thinking, okay, so I'm sitting in the front, and we're doing that, and he goes, "Do you want to take the controls?" I go, "Yeah." And I grabbed that stick, and for like 1 second, I pushed down, and the ground, it was like, okay, I'm done.
Take it. Those are such a good group of guys there at Alexandria Airport too. They meet there pretty much every weekend through the summer. So I'm out there on occasion, doing a little bit of flying as well, and just really good guys and gals that are a part of that organization. And maybe we'll have to bring you back up sometime soon.
Oh, I'd love it. Yeah, I'd love it. I'll tell you. So getting back to Leonardo da Vinci and people who've studied flight, if you think about it, it's a pretty rare group of people who get to fly a plane or even fly in a plane. I know a lot of people fly these days, but you'd be surprised how many people don't get to fly. And to think that you leave this earth in a craft that someone's built, and I mean, it's just pretty amazing to think that you are traveling above, thousands of feet up, and the air pressure's different, the temperature's different, and you do it in relative ease. It's just amazing that we, in a short period of time, from the Wright brothers to the space shuttle, to the man walking on the moon. I mean, that is science, engineering, mathematics, and people solving problems. I went specifically to Kill Devil Hills in North Carolina because of where the Wright brothers flew. And if you ever get a chance to go there, have your mom or dad or yourself stop there. And there's a national park there. And at the time, the curator, the man who told the story, I think he had a doctorate in history of aerospace, but he told the most amazing story of the Wright brothers who flew there on that special day. And when we were all done, I couldn't help but reach down and get a handful of that sand. And I brought it back with me. And I used to use that. I used to glue it on to FPG-9s as a little extra weight, just to have a little magic of the first flight on my plane. And I ended up giving most of that away to kids. I'm gonna have to go back and get some more.
See, there you go. Yeah, as long as it'll fit on the bus, right?
Yeah, if it fits on the bus, we'll take it.
So I had another question for you, Rick.
Yeah.
So knowing that you've received so many awards, so many honorariums, you've accomplished so many great things and are still accomplishing so many great things. I wonder if there's any particular award that stands out as kind of your favorite. What made the most impression on you
Sure.
in the receiving of it or the story behind it?
So there's two of them. One was the award I received from the AMA. It was totally by surprise. I mean, like I see myself kind of like a cheerleader on the side. I'm not like an expert builder. I'm not an expert flyer, but I like to get kids involved in it. And so in one of the magazines, they gave me this nice award from the work we did together. And that meant a lot to me because that's a pretty cool hobby that you get to do. I used to love to play soccer, but I have bad knees. I'll never get to play soccer again, but I can always fly a plane. But I guess probably one of the nicest and one of the most prestigious awards as I am a Milken educator. Now, there's the Milken brothers, and one of them, Lowell Milken, goes across the country, and they have a secret blue ribbon panel to select teachers that have made a difference and continue to make a difference. And back in 1990, it's a surprise. They had a big school convo and they called everybody in. We thought something else. And my name was announced as the winner for that. And plus they gave a check for $25,000.
Oh,
And
well,
then,
that helps.
that was really nice. And then they invited us to Los Angeles, where it was like the Academy Awards for teaching. Now I've stayed with that group, and I get invited back. Like I'm going in a couple weeks to Los Angeles. They invite a small group of us to come and do workshops, and of course mine are always science and FPG 9s. So that was pretty amazing. My work with PBS. I like, and this is kids, you guys ought to think about this. You know, you can be really good at one thing, or you can find ways to use what you're good at in a lot of different areas. So I had this idea for a television show and a PBS show, and we started it. And then I didn't even have any idea that there was these things called Emmys. And after it was done, well, we ended up getting 5 Emmys. I'll show you one. I got one right here. I mean, what do you do with that afterwards? This is this was kind of cool. This is for one of them that I got for that work, a science work, and just to think how privileged I was to work with people, expert cameramen, and mostly expert editors. Because as you probably tell, Kyle, I like to talk. The talking about science and the doing science is easy. So that was pretty amazing, and well, I'll tell you. I won a car one time as a teaching award. That was pretty special.
Nice.
I used to write for a magazine called Learning Magazine, and Oldsmobile sponsored it. And I'll tell you, this is something about, and this relates to flying too. Most good flyers or people that are successful don't give up when they should. You know, there's so many times that I keep trying and trying. In the first year on that Oldsmobile, we got pulled in, up to Detroit for big awards, and I didn't win. Mm-hmm. And I was okay with that. But the lady who was in charge of it said, "Oh, Rick, we only had 5 cars to give away. I wish we had 6. You would have been our next." Well, that killed me. I was that close, that close.
Don't tell me that. Tell me I was way at the end, and I'll just enjoy the trip I had.
Yeah. So anyway, 2 years, they asked me to come back and give talk or workshops the next year. And the next year they said, bring another project. So I brought another project, and I ended up winning that. And I had the nicest red Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme convertible. And I kept it so long that I drove it to the moon. I drove it over 237,000 miles.
Wow.
That's one way to the moon. So
excellent.
Don't give up. There was a model I made one time in the space shuttle. I was in the Teacher in Space. I was the runner-up for Indiana for the Teacher in Space project. I got to meet Krista McAuliffe and Barbara Morgan, and I got, of course, the tragedy of the Challenger. And later I got to meet Krista McAuliffe's mother and tell her what it meant for her, for many teachers. Well, I built this space shuttle model. Okay, it was a Estes model, and it had a glider, which is the STS, the shuttle, which would attach. And I built that exactly how it was supposed to be. It went like 20 feet and crashed in the pavement, going as fast as it goes. Yeah.
Mach 3.
It did not disconnect. So I'm looking at this crumbled mess, and I thought, no, I'm going to redo it. So I with the glues and everything, I put it all back together again and flew it again. It crashed. But the third time, it finally separated and did its thing. So guys, don't give up. I mean, in fact, I always tell everybody, you learn more when it doesn't work. Like you fly an airplane and you think, oh, this is great. It works. And you go make another one just like it and it doesn't work. And you go, I did everything the same way. So when things fail, that's when you can really learn what's going on. If you build a plane out of a box and it flies, that's fun. But you build it with your own hands, and it doesn't work at first, and you find out why, and you fix it, you have a much better understanding, in my opinion, of how things go and fly.
Yeah.
I know you've built a lot of models that probably didn't fly the right at first.
Or after the third or fourth crash, they sometimes fly better even with the different weight distribution and having a little bit of mass behind them. So it's kind of interesting to see how that stuff works, and to continually try again,
Yeah.
and eventually you'll find that success. I've got one other question for you, Rick.
Yeah.
And this was kind of taking a step back a little bit, and as you've experienced science, as you've experienced the wealth of things that you have, what is it that you see that's on the horizon that excites you within science specifically, maybe? What breakthroughs are coming that you see, or that you're most excited or holding your breath for?
Well, it's really interesting because one thing I'm still worried about is that so many people don't understand science. They don't understand that when the data changes, when we learn new things, science
That's
changes.
not broken. It's
not. And there are very few laws in science, like the laws of motion that Isaac Newton worked out. And I actually got to go. I won another award where I actually went to England, planes, trains, taxis, and went to Wolfthorpe's Manor, where Sir Isaac Newton was born, and where the apple fell. And I made a short video about that. I actually ate an apple, probably in National Heritage Trust. I just wanted some Isaac Newton DNA in me. But so many people, they don't understand the nature of science and how. So a science law, is something that's supposed to work here, on the moon, everywhere. A theory is different. A theory is supported by data. And then a hypothesis is trying to test these different things. And so in the future, I think that the drones are amazing. The drones and the technology of how they are, being able to deliver medicine remote, or being able to inspect things. It's kind of like a robot. A robot's the 3Ds for robotics are if it's dirty, dull, or dangerous. And now you have drones that are just an extension of that. And if you add AI to it, that's pretty amazing. Of course, all these technologies also come with the other side of how you use them. I'm also very excited with the mRNA, the messenger RNA. I know we've had a lot of controversy about the vaccines. I'm a big vaccine believer. I did a video on it. The science that is about that is going to save so many lives and so many diseases. So I'm pretty excited about how they had a reason to develop that. There's a lot of things like coming for aviation, this new heads-up displays, or removing, visual controllers, just have optical controllers, see things. And I guess you just got to sometimes just trust the technology. Those are some pretty exciting things. I really think that more and more young people are going to find ways to make our planet better. I always tell everybody I was born on the year that plastic was invented. I was born in 1954. Life magazine had a cover article showing disposable plastic things. And everybody thought, we would never use these. Why would we use something that's, that you throw away, use once? Yeah. And like today, 80% of every piece of plastic made since 1954 is still somewhere in the ground or the ocean. So there are people working, instead of just having a one-way, you dig it up, you get the materials, use it, and you bury it. They're finding a way to have circular, so those things become, they call it feedstock. So the plastic and pieces you use now go back into being used again. So I'm pretty excited about the young people out there doing that, and I hope so. Medicine's amazing. The solar power is there might be one day a small model you can build with solar panels that are lightweight enough on the wings, like the Gossamers or something that a kid could build. So that's going to be exciting stuff.
It'll be interesting to see. Well, and I want to say too, really quickly, if kids want to learn more, if they want to get, excited, if they're curious, they want to, hop down that happy bunny trail and go down that rabbit hole, which I highly encourage. Rick has so many great resources on YouTube. Yeah. I think you've got over almost 500 videos just on the main YouTube channel there. different kinds of curiosity displayed through your videography. And, it's really fun to do. Sometimes I'll sit down at home with my boys and we'll go through some of those videos. And it's just truly a great wealth of information there and entertainment.
Yeah, I like doing new stuff. If I see something or I see somebody trying something, I want to try that. The first hot air balloon I made with my kids, this was years ago. Of course, I made a lot of mistakes too. And so we brought a lot of black garbage bags and we put newspaper down and we ironed them. We just would iron them. And we learned that, this is kind of cool. We learned that if the newsprint had an ad in it with black, that got hotter and it would melt. And so we would use newsprint that didn't have, it has to do with, absorption and heat and color. So we make this giant hot air balloon and we take it out in the schoolyard and we build a fire in the trash can. And, it just kind of went like 100 feet and it messed up. The second one we built, I knew a farmer that had this barn heater. It's called a salamander barn heater.
Oh, those salamanders. Yep.
That balloon went like 6 miles.
You have to call the local airport tower. Hey, there might be something on its way.
That's when I learned the 3 rules about hot air balloons: a rapid deflation device and letting the FAA know. Luckily, it went in a different direction. And it had all of our letters and notes that we put on it. But it wasn't too long ago. I worked with a professor at Ball State University where they take kids and they put experiments up in high altitude balloons, helium balloons. And I got a teacher who does that, what is it like? They want to know what happened, but first of all, what is it like up there? Temperature wise, ozone, radiation. And that's just cool that you could go and do that. A kid could go and do that. So neat stuff. And I hope you get a chance. I made that video about Bernoulli, Daniel Bernoulli, and there's probably about 20 different things that you could do to test it out because, there's the famous Bernoulli bag. I think you might have done that or you will. Mm-hmm. But once you get that concept, you should see where else does it work? Where else does it work? And I showed you a bunch of different things that I do there. And hopefully you guys will try them. And hey, don't take my word for it because I might be telling you the wrong thing. Try it yourself. See if it works.
Yeah, work with your own 2 hands, right? Like test these things, have fun, learn from it. Make the mistakes, and then make those notes. Learn from them. Try something new.
There are some people. Now maybe one of you listen or this kid. I got 30 kids and we make a model airplane, and if one of them, if it doesn't fly right the first time, they just get so frustrated. And I've even seen them throw them in the trash. It's like, dude, and that's not the model's fault. And so you do have to have some patience. A friend of mine is a doctor. He runs a pathology lab, and he says he can't find people that are willing to do detailed, small work like building a model airplane. If he wants to hire somebody in a lab that can take a tissue sample and do all this stuff, it takes concentration and it takes time and effort. And it's like building a model airplane, And so there are skills that you might find useful in later life. And as you get older, you maybe build more sophisticated model airplanes.
Yeah, well, like we say, everything's connected. The things you learn in one environment can be, totally transferred over to another, maybe in a new, exciting way, different way. But, everything that we do makes us up and makes us who we are and helps us to be better people in the future. So,
my saying is, if you build a model plane, you are an aviator. You can try to conquer this beautiful part of our planet, the atmosphere. And if you think of our atmosphere between here and 50 miles up, we only can live in the small place. These planes, I'm sure you heard some great speakers, but you ever wonder why a helicopter can't land you on the top of the Himalayan mountains, Mount Everest or somewhere, about how thin the air is. And that's why I think you had the guy that worked on the drone that's on Mars, the helicopter. Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness.
We'll be speaking to Matt tomorrow, actually.
Oh, that is, if you think about that, the atmosphere on Mars is so much thinner So how are you going to make something that's going to fly on Mars? I mean, one of the early NASA models was to get a plane to actually land on Mars, but the wingspan would have to be so large.
It's so huge it can't support itself. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that conversation. But it'll be good times. But Rick, before we say goodbye, did I miss anything? What is a question you wish I would have asked?
Oh, I guess the question is when you invite us to go build a model together.
Come on up, man. Come on up. Anytime is a great time. Kind of been waiting for the weather to warm up a little bit and the winds to die down a little bit. But you're welcome up here anytime, Rick.
Thanks. I've always thought that if you build enough model airplanes, I always wondered, what if I was in a plane somewhere and I had to fly it? Have I learned enough about a model airplane that I could actually fly this plane? And sometimes I think I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
I mean, next time you get a chance, hop back up into the cockpit and take your hand at the controls. Just don't pitch forward too fast.
Well, thanks for inviting me. As you can see behind me, I have like 30 fish tanks. I like fish too.
Hey, who doesn't? Well, and I'm not going to go down this one too far, but you've even you've traveled the world doing different things. You've gone to the Amazon. You've taught in Egypt. There's nothing wrong with being curious. Feed that curiosity. And find ways to ask questions. From what you're observing, and be willing to share that with those around you. Because you could be the spark that ignites that passion or that curiosity.
Absolutely. And you kids are so lucky, because when I first started teaching, we would have to look on the news or record something if we want to see a picture of, a planet or something. The internet, good or bad, is a great resource of all kinds of information. You can find somebody that's an expert in something. That's kind of cool. So thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me, and hope we fly again sometime soon.
We will, Rick. It was truly a pleasure. Well, and for those who are watching, thank you for watching. And thank you for joining us. Thanks to Rick for telling his story to us. You can tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. when we'll be talking to Matt Keenan, the project manager for AeroVironment Incorporated, and that's the team that worked with NASA and JPL. And they sent the first aircraft, Ingenuity, to Mars. It's an aircraft that's got twin rotors, and you'll get to hear all sorts of different things about how that works. If you are a camper, you will have received an email with a link to watch that morning project stream, where we'll be making a single rotor aircraft, not a double one like the Ingenuity one, but it's a single one. It'll be a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in. That stream will start at 11 in the morning Eastern Daylight Time. So we hope to see you there. Kyle Thede is going to do a great job putting that together for you. And if you didn't get a flight kit and you still would like to do all these projects and have all the different pieces, parts, everything that's required, you can always order one. They're still available. And these different interviews, the videos from every morning, it'll be an on-demand portion later on too. So you can still sign up, you can get those in, and you can enjoy them at your leisure as well. So be sure to do that if you haven't. But honestly, that was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun, and look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow during our continuing AMA Junior Camp. See you then.